Thank you. Good morning. The only disadvantage of following Dr. Chase is I couldn't hear his presentation standing behind stage. He's an Ohio treasure, and I'm sure you've learned a lot from his presentation. As Harry just said, I'll focus a little bit on the economic impact, and what I'd like to, first of all, kind of start with is taking a look at what's happened over the last few years. And of course, many of us in the room have been working together on this for the last 3 years and even longer. If you look at 2010 to 2011, the story really was all about leasing. A lot of activity around companies buying leases or leasing properties from landowners. 2012, we really moved into definition of the play, more wells being drilled, new regulations from Governor Kasich and his team and the state agency, Department of Natural Resources, which was really critical to lay down that foundation, for this activity. Then 2013, we had expanded drilling, build out of the midstream. That was really the big story last year, building out the midstream assets. I think 2014, we're going to see a lot more and hear a lot more about condensate. And then as we look ahead, I think storage is on the horizon and a topic that will get a lot more attention as we go further on. On the point of condensate, I think if you saw the announcement near the end of the year, Marathon's midstream company, MPLX, announced a $140 million condensate project to build a pipeline from Harrison County to their refinery in Canton, allowing that refinery to expand, which is really good news for Canton in this area, about a 25,000 barrel a day expansion. Of course, we have MarkWest partnering with Midwest Terminals, which is a Toledo-based group, to build stabilization and transloading facilities also in Harrison County. And then keep your eye on Crosstex, who's now known as InLink Midstream. They merged midstream assets with Devon, and they certainly have a position in this condensate area. So that's the story, I think, to watch as we look at 2014 and this play continues to evolve. Many of you have seen this slide before. As we look back last year, this story of midstream development has been nothing short of incredible in Ohio. Of course, we had the fractionators and processors being built in Harrison and Columbiana County, Mahoning County, Monroe County as well. Natural gas pipelines being built. The ethylene pipeline is now operational by Enterprise. The one I want to highlight here, since we're in Tuscarawas County, of course, started off as the El Paso processing plant, now is a joint project with Kinder Morgan and MarkWest. So we'll be watching that carefully. The site's been selected. I think permitting activities happen there, and we'll look to see that eventually get built right here in Tuscarawas County. I think another interesting midstream project was the PVR Partners. That's a lean gas line, so dry gas. Even though gas prices have been low, and I'm going to talk more about that in a minute, it's good to see some investment going on the dry gas side as well, and there's some excellent dry gas wells. And then, of course, I just mentioned the condensate projects adding to that. When you add this all up, my numbers are 6.9 billion plus. I know some people quote larger numbers. I try to focus on the projects that have the most activity, and I also look at the dollars invested in Ohio, not the total project that looks outside the state. But whether it's 7 billion or more than that, it's very significant. And it's certainly shown that Eastern Ohio has what it takes to take a project, a concept a couple of years ago, and now fully operational assets in processing and fractionation. And I think that's a great testament to the good folks in this part of the state, the construction industry, all those that support this activity, state and local government working together. And we're going to leverage off that success. I've already been doing that in many companies I've talked to that are looking at Ohio, and point out that we've had maybe 2,000 construction workers on both fractionation sites. Probably some of that was overlap. And we've done it very quickly, safely, and I know the midstream companies are pleased with the results that they have. I think this bodes well for Ohio, this part of the state, and we're going to use that as a selling point as we try to get more investment in the state related to shale. This map I'm actually updating, so next time I speak in this area, I'll have a new map for you. But it certainly shows us that more and more this necklace of assets around western Pennsylvania, northern panhandle of West Virginia, in eastern Ohio is getting the attention of many companies, and particularly petrochemical companies. And so that's a big focus of our effort, and I'll tell you just a little bit more about that in a minute. I wanted to take a time and talk a little bit about kind of a timely topic, which has been how do we interpret what's happened with the polar vortex and the cold weather that we've been experiencing here. I think some of the coldest weather we've had since the 70s, at least as far as I can remember. And certainly natural gas prices did edge up and even peaked, hit over $5, first time since 2010. But let's put that in perspective. So we've had extremely cold weather, and it just kind of, I think for one day, got over $5 in the spot market. You know, if you look back from January 2003 to January 2009, almost that entire 6-year period, gas prices rarely dropped below $5. So since 2009 of January, the prices have consistently been below $5 for the last 4 or 5 years. This is the dynamic that companies are looking at and starting to get the confidence that they can invest in natural gas-based projects, whether it's conversion projects on boilers, combined heat and power, building new gas-fired power plants. Companies are getting more confident that the gas is there and that the price is going to be more stable. I actually think the fact that in the midst of the polar vortex, we only hit over $5 for one day is a good sign about the availability of natural gas and the cost effectiveness of it. The other is the propane shortages, and many of you, maybe some of you personally, have experienced that problem in this all over the state, all over many parts of the country. Propane prices, as I understand it, hit a record of nearly $5 a gallon, more than 2 times the previous record. This has been a major focus for Governor Kasich and his team to try to respond. And I just want to mention to you that this not only impacts our residential home users that use propane, but it's also very important to the agribusiness. And as you know, Jobs Ohio focuses on 9 sectors. We're a diverse economy in Ohio, and agribusiness is a big user of propane and livestock production, drying crops, things like that. So this was an important issue. I just want to give kind of a tip of the hat to the midstream companies, particularly the companies that have fractionation facilities, and their role in helping take propane produced right here in Ohio and getting it to communities in this area. It's also helpful to note that we have 4 refineries in Ohio that all produce propane. So this shows you kind of the extra benefit we get in Ohio by having these types of assets. And now with Utica production, we're strengthening those assets, and this is one of the kind of extra benefits you have as a result of having propane produced in our area. So that's kind of a little bit of insight, and I think a good story to tell, and I think also gives companies confidence, in these availability of these propane and natural gas in Ohio. Let me just take a minute to talk about kind of where we're heading in economic development. And there's really 3 areas of emphasis. One is manufacturers that are in the oil and gas supply chain. This is a real strength. I have an informal list of about 50 companies around the state that make a product or provide a service that support this industry. And that's not at all exhaustive. There are many more, and many companies are emerging as a result of the Utica shale play. We've had 2 recent wins that were of note. One was 6C, which is a specialized welding and fabricator up in, they actually took over a former Delphi plant in Northeast Ohio. That will be 250 jobs. Legacy is a more recent one. They're a company that makes equipment around gas measurement and metering. That'll be 150 jobs also in Northeast Ohio. And of course, we have many examples around here. Trimcar is one of my favorite in producing tanks right here that's used in the oil and gas industry. So this is an area of focus, and we're going to keep focused on winning more companies to locate in our area that make things that are used in the oil and gas industry. Both Utica, Marcellus, as well as other shale plays in the United States and internationally. A second area of emphasis for us in economic development is expansion projects. Those of you, and I know many of you in the room, are very actively engaged in economic development in this area. We know that most of the jobs that are created come from the companies that are already here. So we're looking at the expansion opportunities. In many companies, we're looking at chemical companies. Look at Dover here locally, Cristal, Kraton, Poly One on the polymer side, companies that have recently done expansion projects. We're also looking at combined heat and power projects, fertilizer plants, companies that either use natural gas or benefit from some of the advantages of the derivative products from natural gas liquids that are now expanding their business as a result of it. So that's a second area of emphasis for us. A third area of emphasis is attraction projects, going out and competing for companies that are looking to establish themselves in this area. Our focus is large natural gas users and companies that can add value to the wet gas stream. Obviously, lots of talk about crackers, and will we get one in the region? We hope we do. And we certainly at Jobs Ohio are meeting with companies discussing that possibility. They're complex projects, major capital investment, lots of issues around the sites, storage, and other things that have to be resolved. But we're working on those. But we're not just looking at crackers. We're looking at other companies that might take this wet gas stream and create other value-added products to it that then in turn become feedstock for other companies that make products and parts in our state. So combined cycle power plants is another area of focus. There's two in this area, one in Benton County, one in the Toledo area. More recently, we have a combined cycle plant being looked at in Middletown. We'd love to see those projects come to Ohio, strengthen the grid, have gas-fired power in our state would be a very good thing, so that's also getting attention. Last year, we put a lot of work into sites. If you don't have the right site, you're not going to attract a petrochemical plant to our state. So we've done that. Certainly there's sites in the Appalachian counties and other counties around the state, and that's been a big focus of ours. And then the marketing strategy around taking those sites to the companies that could seriously pull off a new project. So that's kind of an update from the job standpoint. Following me is Paul Boyer, who is our regional partner from Team NEO, and Paul has a terrific background in both chemicals and polymers, and he'll go into a little more detail about some of the opportunities further downstream. Thank you very much.